Look, it is a challenge in higher density areas for people to get outside and to spread their legs.
I'm a bit sick of dropkicks that can't get themselves organised.
Now, today on the web, what will the National Party reshuffle look like tomorrow and why reshuffle? Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will deliver an address to the nation tonight. National addresses are very rare. And will New Zealand get a similar address soon? And a Wellington MP standing by the letter of support for graffiti tagger who defaced the city. With me for the first time on the whip, Luke Malpass, politics, business and economics editor at The Post and The Press. Luke, it's great to have you on the show.
God, it was.
And David Farrar, editor of Kiwi Blog, founder of Curia Polls. David, welcome to the show.
Great to be back.
And former Green MP and community activist Sue Bradford. Sue, kia ora, nice to have you on the web.
Kia ora koutou.
All right, so Luke Malpass, David Farrar and Sue Bradford make up tonight's whip, and there's lots to discuss. But as we always do, we have a listener political quiz, sometimes hard, sometimes simple, but here is ours tonight. In an episode of Make the Politician Work in 2011, what MP was put to work here? Have a listen.
I wouldn't say I've taken over the menu. I would just say that I've zhuzhed it up a little. So now we're having garlic, parmesan, ciabatta, dinner rolls with homemade guacamole, tomatoes, a little bit of spice.
Stick those in because it will be ready by 10 o'clock.
Okay, it's got to be ready by 10. We're getting a little bit tight now. I've got to make that guacamole.
It's got to be ready by 10. So who is that MP or former MP 2101? Well, it's a fraught time in the world of, and arguably in politics, a cabinet reshuffle might be welcome then, as outgoing ministers Judith Collins and Shane Reti make way for newbies around the big table. An announcement is due tomorrow. The panel will be discovering it. Shall I start with you, David? Judith Collins, leaving behind plenty of portfolios, defence, the public service, the spy agencies, digitising government and space. Who might be waiting in the wings?
My expectation is Chris Pink will, if not all of her portfolios. He's a shoo-in for defence. He's already associate defence. He's a veteran. SIS, GCSB, the intelligence ones tend to go with that. And he's a lawyer, and there's not too many lawyers in cabinet. So Attorney General, you could well see going there too. So my pick is, beyond doubt, Chris Pink will move into cabinet. Even a moron could probably predict that he should be in cabinet. In fact, most people think he already is in cabinet. So I think he'll get most of Minister Collins' portfolios.
Okay. Around the panel on this, just a few. Luke, shall we start with you? I see Audrey Young was talking about what she would do in the cabinet reshuffle, and in terms of the Attorney General, she's saying that Chris Bishop would be ideal, but already overworked. Bishop could not be an Attorney General without losing a portfolio or two. What do you think, Luke?
Oh, well, that's certainly true. He'd probably be a pretty good Attorney General, but he is pretty much recognised as one of the most overworked ministers in the government. He has 2 kids under 5, and he is National's campaign campaign director, campaign chair. Sorry, he's the National Party's campaign chair for the upcoming election. So, in order to make room on his plate for that would have to happen. But he is very fond of all of his current portfolios. So I think they'd be interesting to see where that would land.
Okay. So what's in a reshuffle? What's their purpose? What are they for? Have you been through one?
Well, I've never been in government, so never part of a cabinet situation. I guess portfolios very low level compared to the stakes here. I guess I've been focused as ever on the situation with Christopher Luxon and whether the pressure on him will become too intense for the caucus and the party. I noted a poll yesterday that hasn't had much publicity, Roy Morgan, which had the Nats on 26.5%, which is the lowest since 2023. And you can't help
26.5%.
Yes, Labour on 34%, National on 26.5%, New Zealand First 11%, ACT 10%, Greens 11%, Te Pāti Māori 3%, and the Opportunities 4%. So quite an interesting poll, and just this drip, drip, drip between Luxon's constant failures and verbal mishaps, and Nicola Willis obviously trying to make her case constantly, which some of us face with gritted teeth. And what are they ever going to address this, or are they just going to stumble through with their polling dropping by the month?
David Farrar, Chris Luxon going to the meeting, and it's just drip, 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 drip.
Yeah, look, the Roy Morgan poll, it's just worth noting, most people poll over 2 or 3 nights. They poll over 4 weeks. So when you get the results, that's actually numbers that started from 4 or 5 weeks ago. So it's not necessarily the most up-to-date snapshot. Look, I think the worst thing a government can do is 6 months out from an election is think about changing leaders. I think it would be the way you guarantee a change of government. You've got your team, you just get down and you make it work. And I think media just got a bit too excited over the fact ministers had a meeting in Auckland on a Sunday. I've been around a while. Ministers often have meetings in Auckland on a Sunday. It's pretty routine. So I think people just got a bit overexcited over what's not a typical Sunday.
All right. So David Farrar is saying, look, just chill down, nation. Nothing to see here.
Lots to worry about overseas, Iran, petrol.
All right, David. We'll come to you soon, Luke. Did the media get a bit overexcited about Chris Luxon Sue or not?
Oh, I don't think so. But also aware, from David's point of view, I accept that there would be a reshuffle at this point with the two people, Shane Reti and Judith Collins, stepping down. So one could take it at a very low level.
Oh, okay.
So who knows? I mean, they'd have to have a reshuffle at this point.
Yeah. All right. 20 to 8, you are on the whip on RNZ National. We have Luke Malpass, David Farrar and Sue Bradford. Now, does New Zealand have enough fuel storage? That's been the big question of the last few weeks as the country grapples with the dwindling supply. And speaking of supply, there have been murmurings from some commentators that we might be a bit beyond phase 1 of the new management plan. Here's what Edward Miller of the International Corporate Tax and Accountability Research Centre told me on Monday.
I wouldn't say I've taken over the menu. I would just say that
That is the wrong one. Here we go. Try
we
this.
We are a little bit complacent in our attitude right now. I mean, we do have some stock here in the country and there's more to come, but after that sort of 3 weeks from now period, it does look like things start to close up pretty quickly and the heat offshore is rising very, very rapidly.
Luke, have we missed a trick with our fuel storage capability? I mean, some people on the street that I know, I mean, talking to people at the gym, business people saying, phase 1, shouldn't we a bit beyond that? What do you think?
As far as all the phases and the government's plan kind of goes, to be honest, it's all pretty irrelevant. I think most people until we get to kind of phase 3 and 4, when it's basically there's not enough fuel in the country to buy at any price, and then how is it distributed? You know, to what degree does price do it, and to what degree does the government decide that it can do it? I mean, I think in general with diesel and petrol storage, it's very, very easy with benefit of hindsight to say, well, we weren't well prepared enough. I mean, New Zealand First have been making those noises for a while. They're politically capitalising on it. Good for them. But it's fair to say that the kind of just-in-time model of oil is very capital efficient, and that's why it's done all around the world. And you can mandate all sorts of larger storage requirements, which in the wake of this last conflict actually might be a pretty sensible idea, right? But there is a cost that goes with that. And up to now, the government has basically decided that the minimum fuel obligations, the cost of that basically just sits with petrol importers. But I suspect the state will be getting more involved in that here and around the world after this crisis.
Sue Bradford.
Well, obviously both Labour and National-led governments have not even gone to the 28 days of diesel storage that they committed to a few years back. But as someone who lives in a rural area where you really are totally dependent on fuel, either diesel or petrol, to get anywhere, it's too far to walk to the nearest shop or town, and that's the case for many people in this country. In thinking about the situation for people economically as well at the moment with the constantly rising price, not only of the fuel but of the goods as a result of the fuel shortage, I just think our government is not taking it seriously enough. Most countries realise that this is not a short-term matter. It's not something you can leave casually to the markets, that somehow it's all going to work out all right when, as as someone on Radio New Zealand was saying this morning with a lot more expertise than I have, it's all very well, we've got the ships on the sea at the moment, but what happens when all those ships have unloaded their fuel?
When you say the government is not taking it seriously enough, Sue Bradford, what would you like to see happen?
If I was part of a government right now, I would be seriously looking at starting a rationing system, and also doing things like taking the RUCs off for diesel, because diesel has more than doubled in price, as anyone with a diesel vehicle knows. It's out of hand. Nicola Wallace has this very subjective point of view that only the deserving poor will be helped. So we have this very targeted assistance. The rest of the population can go hang. But at the same time...
That's a bit unfair, isn't it?
Well, I don't think so. But it just... There's probably a calming thing going on that the government feels it has to keep everyone calm, and I understand that. But at the same time, I'd feel a lot calmer if they were starting to put into place visible moves towards rationing, because better to have some than none. For those that are totally... you can talk about public transport. You can talk about maybe we'll have enough diesel to keep trucks on the road. But for many people, there are very few transport options.
All right, so David Farrar, what about that? Address some of the issues that Sue Bradford raised. For example, she'd like to see rationing much sooner. In fact, now.
It would actually be counterproductive because, as you touched on earlier, we don't have a lot of domestic storage in New Zealand. We have roughly the ability to store, say, 30 days of diesel. We've actually got 28 to 29 days there. So if you start putting reductions on demand, tell everyone to have carless days, rationing now, do you know what will happen? We'll actually have to turn the tankers away because literally we haven't got the storage capacity. So we're in this thing where we don't need to reduce demand up until the point where there is a supply problem. And then we really have to. So the answer actually is, with benefit of hindsight, we do need more storage capacity in New Zealand. But at the moment, we're actually close to the limit.
Would you like to have seen the government intervene on Marsden Point, David?
Look, with benefit of hindsight, you might say, but I'm not sure that actually would have been a big fix because that was a different type of product that was being done there, etc. In the end, I think there's a case for capacity, but I don't think that's necessarily Marsden Point, actually.
Yeah, there's a case for at the end of this all, we'll live in everyone around the world will realise we live in a much less predictable world than we thought. Then it just becomes a question of, well, what is the most cost-effective way to have more storage?
Well, you wrote a piece, was it on Post of the Press, Luke, about Australia cutting its fuel tax. Would you want to see that in New Zealand?
No, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that'd be so. Anthony Albanese slashed their excise in half to 26 Australian cents. The bond market's already reacted quite negatively towards that, and they've already got inflation going at 3.7%. They've had a real difficulty getting that back in check. So I think it'll be counterproductive for them from an inflation point of view. It'll add $2 billion to their already pretty massive deficit, and it would just do the same thing in New Zealand. And I mean, the other thing is that the price is rising because there is a shortage or a potential shortage. And if you bring something in that really lowers that price, then people will consume more of it rather than thinking more about, well, do I need to take the car today?
Okay.
So,
there's another factor going on here because it's not just petrol and diesel prices going up, it's the food in the supermarket. As someone who...
Absolutely.
Walking into the supermarket every time now, I'm just gobsmacked by the price rises because you get to know the products you buy every week, and just seeing how much those ordinary things that we eat to live to eat, it's just incredible. Inflation, it's hard to imagine how much it's going to go up by. So people are balancing the fuel price with the cost of eating.
Yeah,
and I think
that
keeps a big brake on it for all the people who have to watch what they pay at the pump and watch what they pay at the supermarket, which is a lot of us. Not all of us have the luxury, as those in government do, to not worry about that too much.
So someone made the point the price of fertiliser may have more impact on the world economy than the price of diesel. Obviously, they're linked, but if the food costs around the globe may increase massively because of that fertiliser cost.
Yeah, the price will slosh through absolutely everything. There was a good example, I think we might have had in the post, that I think it was one of the plumbing wholesalers is putting up all of their piping by 30% because resin is very hard to get out of Qatar to make pipes. So, I mean, there'll be little examples of just every
resin,
day
plastics,
of stuff, just plastics,
container,
fertiliser,
your
food.
milk bottles.
Sue's totally right. This will just make basically everything in the economy more expensive.
Okay, so look, finally on this issue. So 2 states in Australia have responded in this way. They've decided to make public transport free. Round the whip tonight. Is there a case to be made for free public transport for the length of this crisis? Sue Bradford.
Oh, yes. It would be a wonderful step to help people survive, basically.
David Farrar, free public transport for the length of this crisis.
I don't think you need to. Public transport's already soaring. The price signals are doing their job. Public transport's reached a record high. EV sales are reaching a record high without needing the government, which already has a structural deficit and massive debt, contributing to that. So I actually think people will work out for themselves what's most cost effective for their families.
Luke Malpass, follow Australia's lead again and make free public transport for the length of this crisis.
Depends how high the petrol price goes.
Okay, this is maybe. Sue.
Oh, I think it would be a great idea in terms of equity and people simply surviving, being able to go to uni, to go to work, to go wherever they need to go. In those places that have public transport.
Yeah, of course.
Which isn't all of us. But yes, it would be great.
So we've got a yes, a no and a maybe. No to free public transport. It's very expensive and benefits me and a number of my colleagues who can afford to pay. You could do something to reduce the cost to community services cards holders and or students. All right, now you are on the whip tonight with David Farrar, Luke Malpass and Sue Bradford. And now to our quiz question. So this again, in an episode of Make the Politician Work in 2011, who was put to work here?
I wouldn't say I've taken over the menu. I would just say that I've zhuzhed it up a little. So now we're having garlic, parmesan, ciabatta, dinner rolls with homemade guacamole, tomatoes, a little bit of spice.
Stick those in because it will be ready by 10 o'clock.
Okay, it's got to be ready by 10.
Ready by 10 o'clock.
We're getting a little bit tight now. I've got to make that guacamole.
Okay, maybe the accent gives it away, who knows. But anyway, we have Mark on the line. Kia ora, Mark.
Kia ora, Wallace. How are you?
Very, very well. Now, who is that former MP?
That would be the unmistakable Paula Bennett.
10 out of 10. Would you like to see a return of a show where MPs were put to work in, say, everyday situations?
Yeah. I think they could do with getting out of the beehive once in a while. I actually remember watching that. I think back in the day. Yeah.
Well, it was quite a good program, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was.
Very good, Mark, there. Thank you. All right, David, did you pick that up?
I picked up Paula. For a second, I thought it might be Nikki Kay because I knew she appeared on this show, but she went on the rubber strikes.
That's right.
And Nikki could not cook to save her life. So the moment I heard it was about cooking, I realised it wasn't Nikki. And yes, Paula's very distinctive voice gave it away.
An inventive idea for a show. Sue, don't you think? Getting MPs in those everyday situations, be it at a food bank or something like that, or as a first responder, show how they work. What do you reckon?
I don't know. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not into reality TV, but I certainly remember that episode with Paula Bennett.
Good on you. All right, now, MIA. That's the assessment from some commentators of Christopher Luxon's handling of the fuel crisis. We've touched on it briefly, but a bit more on this. The Prime Minister has fielded questions in his usual media spots, but much of the messaging on the crisis has come from Finance Minister Nicola Willis and Energy Minister Shane Jones. We've all noticed it, David. I mean, as someone said, Nicola on this has been whip-smart, analytical, very sharp. Energy Minister Shane Jones obviously has a lot to say, but Tracy Watkins in the Sunday Star Times says, why is Luxon missing his Ardern moment? So I'll go on the panel. David Farrar, does Christopher Luxon need a Jacinda Ardern moment in this crisis?
I don't think we should assume that the Jacinda COVID way is the only way to go. In fact, when we had the Asian bird flu crisis many years ago, the PM John Key didn't once front it. Tony Rowell did daily press conferences and stand-ups, going around the country fronting it there. The PM, I think rightfully, is doing the most important thing, which is talking to leaders of Singapore and South Korea, etc., and making sure that oil and fuel supplies keep coming through. That's more important, because if he does his job well there,
he's doing the backroom work. He's doing the backroom work.
Doesn't matter. Now,
what
Nicola
about as a figurehead?
Is a world-class communicator. She used to be a staffer with me, and in fact, she used to play Helen Clark in debate prep against John Key, and she was so good, she actually beat John Key so badly, the staff had to call a halt because Key was getting his confidence.
We have a Prime Minister, though. We have a Prime Minister who needs to do Prime Minister things.
I think some of this speaks to the different skill set that the Prime Minister has and the things that he values. And frankly, a lot of what you would consider traditional political skills, he is pretty dismissive of, basically. I think he regards them often as as things that sort of losers in Wellington who political saddos kind of possess. And it's not a quote, that's my that's the way I put it. But I think this goes to it's a small thing that speaks to a broader problem that he's had during his premiership, which that he personally struggles to politically capitalise on events that happen. He struggles to insert himself in a way that people find compelling and compelling and appealing. And also the other thing is he is a delegator. He is very much of the view, I'm the boss of this sort of government, I'll manage it all. If my ministers, I'll make sure that my ministers are doing a good job, and basically it's up to them. So what that means in practical terms is that often he fronts up to things and he doesn't know the details of them because he thinks someone else, he thinks it's not his job to know the details. My minister's doing
Was Winston Churchill a delegator?
No, he was the opposite.
Okay, so Sue Bradford, do we need a delegator, a prime ministerial figure in this crisis? What do we need?
We need someone a lot better than either Christopher Luxon or Nicola Wallace. David calls Nicola a world-class communicator, but I'd say that depends on who the audience is. For a lot of us, the way she speaks has the opposite effect, I have to say. But I'm sure that's to do with ideology and how she presents, but that debating style is very alienating to a lot of ordinary people, I'd have to say. But on Christopher Luxon, I think that he's never really cut it as a PM. He's never cut it as a political leader for the sort of capacity that I'd want to see in a political leader that one can have confidence in. Of course, his politics are in a very different place, but I think that how he is not performing at the moment, not stepping up, it's beyond him. I don't know why the National Party ever thought that he was going to make a great leader, and what's happening at the moment.
He did win the election.
At a time when people are really struggling with a major crisis, he's doing nothing to help build public confidence in the government's ability to handle.
Well, David Farrar, you've got to respond to this.
Well, I just do recall National, in a pollster was at 22% before Luxon took over. It won the election at 38%. I think there are legitimate criticisms, and Luke's talked on some of them, etc. But I think it's a bit too easy to just say, oh, yeah, look how terrible he is, because they won the last election, and again, his job of making sure the fuel and oil gets into New Zealand is, I think, more important than doing the press conferences.
So he's doing those big deals, behind-the-scenes stuff that you and I will never get to know about. It's actually, for want of a better word, oiling the wheels of this whole thing.
Well, he might be. We don't know.
Okay. Hey, now
he'll claim it out of the way.
Yeah, right.
Of course, politician.
So on that, Tova O'Brien interviewed Christopher Luxon on Monday on TVNZ, her first day as co-host of the TV show, and we've got this little interaction here. Have a listen.
My job as the CEO, so day one, it's to form the ministerial oversight.
Your job as the Prime Minister.
Yeah, sure it is, but my job is to make sure I've got my team on the right assignments.
Round the panel, Luke Malpass, is Chris Luxon a CEO or a Prime Minister?
Well, it's both.
Okay, David Farrar, is he a CEO or Prime Minister?
He approaches it like a CEO, and there's advantages to that, but the disadvantages are his corporate speak, such as referring to himself as a CEO. That's not what people want to hear.
Is he a CEO or Prime Minister?
Well, I don't think he has or does a good job as either, and that way he talks is absolutely part of it.
Okay. Now, a quick word on this. Should MPs... on a completely different note, with Sue Bradford, Luke Malpass and David Farrar, should MPs be throwing their weight behind the people before criminal courts? Green Party MP for Wellington Central, Tamitha Ball, has written a letter of support for a graffiti artist known as Porkster, who's on trial for intentionally damaging property. It's been quite the issue in the capital here. David Farrar, not the first time a Green MP has done this. How does this look for the party, do you think?
Well, I don't think it's a good look, and I always like to put the test as people attempt to say it's fine to break the law when it's a cause we agree with. So the challenge I put out is, how would people feel if someone went around Green Party electorate offices graffitiing them with deport all immigrants now, or the treaty should be ripped up? There'd be outrage. So when you have people writing political slogans on National Party electorate offices and Green MPs actually writing references to the court to say go easy on them. Yeah, look, I think it's a bad look. You don't have to agree with laws, but MPs are meant to actually say we should obey the laws they have there.
Sue Bradford.
I think that public figures of any sort should have a right to write a personal reference when they know someone going before the court. It happens all the time that someone's before the court and you happen to know that they've got these particular characteristics that should be taken into account. I just don't see anything wrong with doing that.
Briefly, Luke, in 15 seconds.
Graffiti gives me the pip, to be honest.
Yeah, there you go. Wise words spoken there. Hey, what a great panel. Sue Bradford, Luke Malpass, David Farrar. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's been a cracker of a show. Stay with us on RNZ National. Emile Donovan with Knights after the news.